Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much once again joining me for tea time. Today we have a little bit of misty morning, and that is it. I hope you're joining me with your cup of tea, a cup of coffee. Today is a live day, TGIF, everyone, TGIF. Thank God another week has come and gone. It's the weekend. It's time to enjoy. Today is going to be a live. We have someone special online. Now, he was on with us once before, and we got to take a look at some amazing astrophotography shots from him. His name is Ken Lawson, and he is on with us today. Ken, how are you doing, my friend? How are you doing?
Good, mate. I'm doing good. Hope you are as well.
Good, not bad, not bad. I don't see you on here yet, but let's go and see if we can get you on there because sometimes OBS does some weird things where it works and then it doesn't work. And let's see, it should bring you online. Are you? There you are. There it is. How are you doing, my friend? Everything good?
Yeah, I'm good, mate.
Good, 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 good. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about astrophotography. Obviously, you are an astrophotographer amongst a lot of other things. You have your own channel. There's a lot of things that go on. And the last time we had you online, we talked about astrophotography. But today I want to get a little bit more of a, let's say, a switch to it, a little different edge to it, let's say. And things are different then as they are now. As of now, there is a lot of, or a lot more space junk, so to speak, that's kind of maneuvering around the planet. And that is from Elon Musk, SpaceX, or their Starlink. So I want to talk to you a little bit about it and see how it affects you. And then also I want to tell everyone that this entire live is being done on SpaceX's Starlink. So if there's any dropouts or anything, you can blame Elon for it. But we'll see how it goes. And if there are dropouts, let us know in the comment area. I'm also going to run a ping during the entire thing. If you don't know what that is, that shows the milliseconds of like a round trip. I'm going to ping Google 8.8.8.8 just to see how the ping is during this entire time, and if it gets bad, if it gets good, or how is it during this broadcast. Because remember now, I'm bringing in his feed, I'm taking my feed, and then I'm sending it out to you guys through YouTube. So it's a bunch going on using a satellite. And the thing is it's not a stationary satellite. It is these mobile low Earth orbiting satellites. So these things are constantly on the move, and they switch. The Starlink system switches between satellite and satellite and satellite as they move through. So there's possibilities of downtime. So once again, let us know. Also, if you have any questions as we talk about this, or if you want to talk about anything, it doesn't have to be Starlink, doesn't have to be astrophotography, just photography in general, in the comment area or in the chat, in the comment area after, if you're watching this after the fact, recorded, let's say Memorex instead of live. If you are live, in the chat window, put any type of comments that you want for either one of us. So anyways, tell everyone who you are, Ken, so that they get an idea of what you're coming, where you're coming from.
Yep. So, yeah, my name's Ken, and I live in Western Australia, just north of Perth, and I've been doing photography and astronomy ever since I was knee-high to grasshopper. Ever since I could look up the stars, my first telescope I had about when I was about 8 years old, and I was shooting black and white film with my dad around the same time. I didn't connect the two together. I didn't put a camera on a telescope back then.
Right.
That was later in life. I've always been interested in astronomy and photography ever since they dot.
Yeah, it's I think it's very interesting when anyone, doesn't matter if they're young or old, when they take a picture of the night sky and they get like a bunch of dots, it's one thing. But when you take an extended picture of the night sky and all of a sudden you're able to resolve things that you didn't even know that they were there, all of your, all of your life, it's just quite amazing. A lot of people look at it and they're like, oh my goodness, this is just incredible. And I definitely I'm going to show some of Ken's work on the screen as we're talking about things. But to start out with, I just want to get your take, just a general over, kind of a wide angle to the entire satellite issue. where there's more and more and more satellites being launched up every single day. We have Elon, for example, sending on about 40 to 50 satellites every week almost at this point at a breakneck speed. We see China that's
Yep.
getting on board. There's a lot of countries and companies getting on board to send these low Earth orbiting satellites into orbit so that they can do something very similar to what Elon Musk is doing right now. He's definitely on the forefront. And right now, there's about 2,000 satellites I think he has up there, maybe 2,200, somewhere around there. And he's looking on about 30 to 40,000 in total. So, I mean, what is your
Mm.
general kind of, like I said, wide angle perspective on the entire,
Um,
what's been going on here?
I mean, yeah, the idea of having a global satellite network, and they call it a constellation satellite system, which is a play on the actual constellations, and you'll be able when there's 42,000 satellites up there, you'll actually be able to see more satellites than you actually be able to see stars, which is kind of
Right.
scary.
Yeah.
But the idea of having accessible internet across the world and all these remote regions that don't have internet is really cool. The downside is the effect that it's actually going to cause astronomy and actual scientific research with astronomers. That's kind of a downside because there's no actual, at the moment, there is no policing. You can stick, once you get FFA approval of sticking stuff up there, you can shove whatever you want up there.
Right.
There's no government organization that says, okay, you can't do this, you can't do that. You have to clean up after yourself. It's only if they hit the earth that you have to clean them up. So there can be so much junk up there, and it'll just be an absolute junkyard once they think, because these things are not going to be up there forever. They're going to deorbit and burn up, and they might smash into each other and cause more space junk in the atmosphere. And yeah, it's kind of a
Yeah.
free for all. That's kind of scary that
Yeah.
it's a free for all.
Yeah. I mean, I was reading an article about that and like who has, is it like is it going to be like a world organization that says what is legal and not legal to put into space and then how to conduct yourself while in space, or just simple things like what happens to all of this space junk, which is small satellites. um, what happens to them at end of life? Is there like a contingency plan, like if something gets out of whack and it starts moving into let's say other companies or other countries orbiting pattern to
Which
go
has
and
happened.
smash their, is there a self-destruct,
Yeah.
or what do they do? And then
Yeah.
also, what ends up happening if these things come into they fall from orbit? And we've seen some of that happen recently where Elon launched up, I think it was 49 satellites, and out of those 49, I think 40 of them blew up within the first couple of days, and that was due to,
They all burnt up. Yeah.
yeah. And I think what ended up happening is the atmosphere got really thick and dense due to radiation. Let's say a storm, a
Oh,
geomagnetic.
was there it
I
was a
think it was
coronal mass ejection, so it was a coronal mass ejection?
from
Yeah.
the sun.
So there was a
Yeah,
lot of yeah, there was a lot of activity in the atmosphere, and yeah, they couldn't get altitude, and they
yeah.
burnt up.
Yeah, they couldn't get high
Yep.
enough to hit, a port. Now, what people don't know is these low Earth orbiting satellites, they're constantly falling to Earth. It's just the speed at which they fall is directly proportional to the height which they're at. So once you get them to a
Correct.
certain height, they will fall to Earth in a certain rate that might take 5 years for them to re-enter our atmosphere. But if they can't, what Ken's saying, if they can't get them to that height, they just get there and then they fall even quicker. And we saw some amazing, spectacular fireworks as they were. Some of them were re-entering. I saw
We're
some
burning up,
some
yeah.
yeah, burning up some amazing
I mean,
images.
I did laugh a little bit when that happened. I went, that's actually it. It's like if you're gonna launch stuff into space, you should be looking at that big ball of death that gives us life, because that thing will
Yeah,
stuff up there
yeah.
or not.
And I wonder if they could, these ejections from the sun, that produce these magnetic fields, these waves of, I guess plasma is probably what it is, which densens up or thickens up the atmosphere, which makes everything heavier. I wonder, do they know that these things are coming? Is there, and this gets me into the next question.
Yeah. Yep. You do get a little bit of warning when there's a lot of, because we're in a solar minimum at the moment. The sun's been quite quiet with its activity, but we have had a couple little bursts where we've had some good CMEs, which is a coronal mass ejection. So when it happens and it starts spewing stuff directly at us, I mean, they're happening all the time, but whether they actually come directly towards us. So we usually have a few hours that we know
Uh-huh.
that one's coming. There's not much you can do with the communication system. So all the communication systems around the world really get disrupted. So if there's a massive coronal mass ejection,
Yeah.
pretty much all communications on Earth can get knocked out.
Right. And then there's not
It's
too
like
much.
an EMP.
Right. Just like an EMP. Exactly. There's not much that you can do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you would think that, wow, he just lost 40 satellites out of 49. He's going to just say, that's just kind of upset. And he's like, he kind of laughed it off and launched another 40 like the next week. So,
Yeah.
this is,
Yep.
I think the difference between Elon Musk's SpaceX and other companies and countries that are doing it is his means of autonomous um, first stage, second stage rockets, which will literally launch these satellites up into orbit and then come back down to Earth and slow themselves up and then land themselves, like for example, the first stage, land themselves on the back of another autonomous boat ship that will then take them, back to have them refueled up and ready to go again, which is unbelievable. I mean, these are like not even manned.
Hmm.
It's not a manned rocket. It's not a manned boat. It's not a manned. This is fully autonomous. It's just amazing to me. Um, the technological know-how that this man is putting out there. Now, some people will say, "Oh, this dude is like Satan. He's like the devil. The stuff that he's doing is just, it's crazy. It's horrible." And then other people are saying, "Wow, this has absolutely changed my life." Like you were saying, some people that are in the far,
Yeah.
deep neck of the woods, someplace that have just been using, 2600 baud modems for 30 years, now getting high speed internet
Well, even if
access.
even that, they might not have anything at all. I was
Right.
seeing an article about this guy that was out in a reservation. They had nothing, absolutely nothing. And with COVID, when they couldn't go to the school or whatever, they had no connection, so that they couldn't do even schooling at home. And then once they got Starlink, now they're like, "Can we get YouTube?" And like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
you can get
It's like,
YouTube
what?
now." So they got instant access to information, and instead of having to go to the library or being able to physically to go to the school, they've got access to information, which is revolutionary.
Yep.
If you
No,
didn't have it,
absolutely. William in the chat says, are you in the least concerned the platform that you're on has become anti-free speech and socialist? And now, it's always hard to talk about anything having to do with that on this platform because YouTube, Google, Facebook, doesn't matter what it is. They not only listen to what is being said, it is being converted into text and then is being autonomously looked through and scoured through for keywords to kind of cue in on. So, am I worried about it? Not so much. But as you have seen, I'm sure most people that are on YouTube, there have always been, or not always, but as of the last 2-3 years, they've been very cautious about the exact wording that when they're talking about certain
hmm
subjects. And do I think that that's kind of sad? Yes, I do, because freedom of speech has definitely been, let's say, it's not gone, but what has happened is it's become a little bit harder. It's not fully free anymore. You can still speak what's on your mind, but there are consequences to what you speak. Whereas, years back, you can basically
the
say whatever you
boundaries
want.
have closed in a little bit. Yeah,
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 absolutely. There's a little bit more of a squeeze going on, and for me,
Uh-huh.
I don't like
Yeah.
that. And I'm sure you're in your country. I'm sure you're
Yeah.
seeing the exact same thing, right?
Yep. Yep. Totally.
Yeah, I
You've
mean,
got to. Whereas before, you could have an open, honest conversation with a bunch of topics and discuss it openly, and no one would get upset and offended. And if you were just discussing something, but now you kind of got to second guess what you're saying and bite your tongue a bit. It's not good.
no, I don't. So, am I worrying about it, William? No, but it's definitely an issue. And just like Ken said, years ago we would be able to just come on and just say whatever we want. And now you really have to think about it because, like I said, it's not just what you write. It's not what's in the comments. It's not what's in the chat. It's not what's in your pinned comment at the
Everything.
top. Exactly. It's not in your title. It's literally in your audio. Your audio is being filtered through real time. So you can imagine the
Yeah.
mega computers that they need to be able to take like this feed right now in real time. If I'll give you an example, if you type something in the chat right now that is off color to them, it will pop up on my side and say, "We don't think that you would like this. Do you want this to be released into the chat, or do you want me to hold it?" And this is fully
And there's also, and beyond that, there's certain words that you won't even see.
no,
YouTube automatically block. You can't even turn that off. It's automatic. It just blocks it.
right,
Yeah,
right, right.
you got no
So
control. And
so
like you were saying before, when they're text they're converting it to text the whole thing. That's the reason why you can turn the caption annotations on right now because it's doing it, and like you say, it's doing it in real time right now.
real time.
And if you or myself said something that was off color, it would flag. It would
Right.
definitely flag.
No, Absolutely.
You've got the other agencies listening in on this, and they would flag up. But yeah,
Yeah. No, absolutely. So,
it's in a hat thing. But yeah,
yeah, I'm
it's
not
real.
so I'm in the US. I've always been one of those people that I've been like unbiased all my life. So I've never been like
Same.
one party or the other party. I'm just like a free thinker. So if something sounds like shit,
Hmm.
it probably smells like shit too. Okay. Now,
That's right.
I mean, I don't know that it's just I'm just very plain like that. I don't get into all of the politics stuff and all that stuff. I really don't care. Life is so damn
Yeah,
short. I mean, how many years do we have on this planet? Um, and then maybe eventually we'll end up in the stars, you and I, but we have a very short
that
period of
would be
time.
nice.
Yeah, right. It would be nice, but we
Tomorrow
have
never
it.
comes. Yesterday never was. You've only got now. You could wake up long time
Yeah,
dead tomorrow.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, getting back to topic at hand with the satellites, what they were saying is they were doing some research and found that, like you were saying earlier, that there has been like a 35-fold increase in seeing these satellites in the work that these astronomers are doing during dusk and sunset, sunrise. And the importance of that, and we were talking about earlier, is a lot of the research that is not just to make beautiful images. And speaking about beautiful images, let me go ahead and while we're talking about this topic, I'm going to shut
Yep.
the audio off, but I'm going to run a video that can put together. It's a YouTube. You guys, I'll put a link or something, but you guys can watch this while we're talking and maybe I'll pop our crazy heads down here. I don't know if we can. Yeah, up there we are. We're there. So what I was saying is that, this increase that is happening, I think that the problem with this is, and during dusk and from sunset sunrise, is those are the times when a lot of these astro photographer or astronomers or researchers are using that time to be able to spot rogue asteroids, things that can really be negative to the planet. Whereas if we saw them, we would be able to maybe launch nukes or do something to try to, overt a possible doomsday event from happening when, you are just littered with satellites in the sky. What ends up happening is you can very easily miss those important objects, and now all of a sudden you're blinded,
You're
and that's
totally
why.
gonna miss. Totally gonna miss it. Yeah.
Yeah, And there's
only
some
going to miss them
researchers
because,
that,
like you're saying, the
yeah,
increase is ridiculous. Before 2019, we only had a couple of thousand satellites in the night sky, and now we've got almost a couple of thousand. Elon Musk, so we've doubled in the last couple of years. We've already doubled the amount of satellites, and in the next few years, we're going to have tens of thousands of satellites in the sky, which is just never ever happened. It's so exponentially fast in the history of space race.
yeah, and
Like,
how fast
crazy.
it's been. And I think what's happening is
Yeah.
the other countries and different companies are seeing what Elon's doing and saying, we're falling behind. I feel like it's very similar to like Canon and Nikon. When they were watching
Yep.
Sony come up with their full frame mirrorless cameras, they, eventually they're saying, maybe this mirrorless crap is not going to go over. We'll just let them do all the research, all the R&D, and then we'll come from behind if we need to. Well, they needed to like 2, 3 years before they did. So they were, Sony was eating their lunch forever. And now Canon has picked up and caught up, let's say, to Sony pretty damn much. But you see Nikon, they're
Yeah.
screwed. I mean, I hate to say it. I mean, the Z9 is
Yeah.
awesome. They're Z6, Z7, great cameras, but they're I think they've lost so many, really great professional photographers that have, migrated over to Sony or other platforms that just it's definitely problematic. And I think this is what's going on with the different countries as well as the companies. They're seeing Elon here launching continuously. Like I said, like a breakneck speed of 40, 50 satellites every single week. It's nuts. And now, if I don't know if you know, but originally they were sending out, I think they were called version ones. And the version ones were just standard, satellites, where version 1.5
Mhm.
are the same type of satellite, but they're a little bit stronger, number one. But number two, they have lasers on them for doing inter-satellite communications. That is that is so massive that, I mean, if you don't know how that works, let me just tell you, that is so big because what that means is if I'm sending data to someone on the other side of the country, let's say, they don't even have to go through a POP or a point of presence or a NOC, as I call them, a network operations center. They could just go from ground tower, and instead of going from me to the ground tower up to the satellite, back to the ground tower, back over, and all this stuff, they could literally go and bounce that data through the speed of light, just
Yep.
like if they were on the ground with fiber optics, literally from satellite to satellite to satellite, then down to a ground station where it needs to be. That is going to improve latency unbelievably. And
And
I
that's only
think,
version 1.5. I mean, he's launched version 2 now, which is even more
right,
crazy.
exactly. And now 1.2. Now I'm going to bring this up. It's going to be on the screen. Let me go and bring that screen back up. So I'll just leave this up here just for a couple of minutes. Now this right here is my ping, which is my RTT, basically I call it a ping pong. We are sending a ping to Google, which is 8.8.8.8, which is their DNS server. And then they're ponging, let's say, back to me saying, hey, we're here, I'm here. It's no problem. And now how many milliseconds does it take for that ping and pong to happen? So as you can see here, I'm getting let's say 40 milliseconds, 50, 32, 37, 36, 27, 31. That is pretty damn good, guys.
That's
Remember,
pretty good for satellite.
this is a satellite feed that I'm going live with and bringing in his feed from Australia, then sending it to YouTube. And all of this is happening through my little dish that's sitting on the top of the studio. The signal is going from there up to a satellite that is just swinging by, who knows which one, because they're constantly
At
changing.
550 kilometers up there, by the way.
Yep, at 550 kilometers in the sky, and then coming back down to the ground station, over to the POP, and then from the POP over to Google. Google replies, back to the POP, up to the satellite, down to the ground station, back to the dish, and here on my computer. And literally all this happens in, as we're seeing right now, 70 milliseconds, 67, 55. That is insane. That is insane. So where I used to have access through AT&T, I used to have about 15 megs down, and 15 megabits down and 1.5 megabits up. Now this system is like 200 plus. Sometimes I see 280 plus down, and then the up speed anywhere from about 15 to about 35 up. Depends on what's going on in the sky. But even at
Big
15,
difference.
that would be 10 times the speed that I was getting before with AT&T. And this is through
Yep.
a satellite.
Yep.
So and so this is why a lot of people are like, wow, this is unbelievably great. I want it. And the waiting list, Ken, for this is unbelievable.
Oh, it's
Absolutely.
crazy.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah. The demand for it's so high, and I can imagine like uh, here, for example, because Australia, like America, it's a big, wide open country. I mean, you got no communications. And back in the day when you would just had, if you wanted satellite service, there was only a couple of satellites you were able to get onto. They were crammed up, they were oversaturated, and the delay and the ping time and the latency was just atrocious on
Right.
those. Yeah, so Starlink has just completely revolutionized it.
Yeah, it completely changed stuff altogether. Let's just do a couple of shout outs here. Let's see. Archery Son, how are you doing? William and Body, how are you? We have who else is in here? Paulo is in here. William, Nicola, how are you doing, guys? Once again, any questions that you have, definitely stick them in the chat and we will get to them. Let's just go over here. William says, is there no other SpaceX type company? And William, there's a lot. There's a ton. There's in China,
Yeah.
in every country has their own type of space. Not every, but a lot of them. The difference between SpaceX and other companies and countries is once again those autonomous rockets that do what they do, and they do it 100% unmanned. It's all just it's put together so that they launch and then they come back down. These first stages, I guess you would call them, would land on the back of an autonomous ship. They'd be brought back. They would be reconditioned. Remember, they never hit salt water, so they're clean. I mean, they're burnt up a
No.
little bit, but they're clean. So the amount of time, some of these rockets, some of these things have been up like 5, 6, 7 times already, which is insane. Most of the time, they would launch rockets. The piece would land in the ocean. They would go with a ship with a bunch of crew. They would grab it. They would bring it in. It was all full of salt water. Chances are they would just use it for parts, and that would be it. Now there
Oh,
is
they
no
wouldn't even do that. It was just scrap. It was just
scrap it.
scrap. Yeah.
Now it's
Just
fully
well,
autonomous.
yeah,
There's no one
scrap it.
there. There's no people anymore. It's a boat that just goes out there. No one's on the boat. It grabs a thing, brings it in. So yes, there are other people out there doing it, and like I said, other countries, but no one like Elon Musk. None. Nothing like
And
SpaceX.
and Elon's got the advantage. He's a one-stop shop. Like
Right.
he's making the satellites, he's making the rockets, he's sending the whole. He's got all the infrastructure, the whole entire lot. A lot of these other companies, they happen to run on the backs of companies like Elon to send the satellites up, or hire another company to, you know. So he's a one-stop shop. And a lot of the others, like you've got Amazon, so they're doing one as well, and there's a couple others in the States, but the downside with the other ones is they're going to be not as low Earth orbit, so you're actually going to have more reflectivity. So you're going to have more of those streaks going through the sky, even more than what Elon Musk's Starlink systems is going to be, because they're going to be, some of them are going to be over 1,000 kilometers up, which is
Really.
a lot higher. Yeah, so that's going to be the whole entire night. They're going to be completely illuminated. That's more so than dawn and dusk,
Yeah.
which
See,
is
that's
scary.
that.
Like
Yeah, that's
going back
that's
to earlier,
that's going to be a
yeah, with
problem.
the radios, it's going to be a huge problem because, like you're saying, trying to observe these satellites. I mean the phenomenon of asteroids, and so you got asteroids, comets, and um, supernovas. You have to do wide field surveys to see those objects, and
Right.
you're essentially doing a blink system where you're actually taking one image, you take another image, and you compare it. If something moves or blinks, then you've got something there, and you have to do that at dawn and dusk because that's where the position of where these asteroids are coming from and the comets are coming from towards the
Right.
sun. So you have to do them around dawn and dusk, and that's when the highest reflectivity of these satellites are, to the point that one research organization in America, before 2019, 0.5% of the images would have streaks in them from satellites. Now, about 6 months ago, they said it's now 20% of the images. And once Starlink is fully pictures, I'm not
Right.
doing actual science that could save, a whole city from getting hit by an asteroid. I mean, the
Right.
big asteroids, you're going to be able to see them because they're massive, but the small ones that could impact a major city and destroy it and lose millions of lives, they're the ones we need to look out for. So that's really scary. And that's just optical.
Yeah, and
What's really scary about the radio, there is no governing body that says you can you have to be within a certain wavelength, other than you're not allowed to interfere with existing communications,
right.
like military applications.
Yeah, I want to talk.
Everything else is free for all.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about that and the military and the possible other, issues in it. Now, I saw the article here, I think it was the Wall Street Journal. It says a spokesperson from NASA told the Wall Street Journal that satellites, quote, have the potential to interfere with ground-based observations by increasing the complexity of differentiating artificial satellites from natural objects like asteroids and comets. And that's exactly what you were saying. And
Yep.
this is what a spokesperson from NASA is saying. And that is the case. So, what are we going to be able to do, or what are they going to be able to do? I think that a lot of this is going to go back to the computers and kind of like we're seeing today with computational photography. I think a lot of these ground stations and the work of the astronomers, they're going to end up having to have different software packages that are somehow dialed into or in alignment to the exact 100,000th of a second of where every single satellite and piece of junk is in the sky. And then just simply using the software, find each one of those dots. Maybe it's 4 pixels, maybe it's 1 pixel, maybe it's 10, removing that and replacing that with, let's say, a pixel next to it or something like that, so that they can actually still do their work and see things. But the problem with that is if they do replace the junk with a pixel next to it, where that junk is could be that asteroid that you need to see.
That's right.
So it's like, it's like a catch 22.
And we're only talking about Elon Musk. So you think about
Right.
it in 20 years when there is 10 different companies up there and we've got maybe 100,000 satellites up there. You're not going to be able to cancel that out. There's going to be so much noise. You're going to be
Right.
screwed.
No,
Absolutely
absolutely.
screwed. Not
Yeah,
gonna be able to see
absolutely.
anything.
William, when William Embody, he says, what do you think about vintage reflective telescope lenses popular in the 70s and 80s? I'll give that to you.
No one really seems to use them for the simple reason, if you're trying to do astrophotography with them, that they're too small. And you can buy a really accessible, cheap telescope that'll actually be a lot better than those old reflex, because of the quality of the optics in them wasn't up to scratch or what you got in a real cheap, basic level entry telescope that you get now. Even with the mass-produced stuff that's coming out of China, the optical quality is 1,000 times better than what you get in those old reflex lenses. But yeah, you can pick them up and play around with them really cheap. They're a good thing to play around with. But yeah, I wouldn't go out and spend a lot of money on it.
Gotcha. That's good. I hope that helps there, William. So this right here is a picture from Ken that shows the International Space Center coming by the moon, and obviously this is the largest satellite that's up there currently. But you get an idea of what this looks like, and obviously we're seeing this stepper, moving like what is it every maybe second or every couple of seconds that this shot was
No,
taken.
that's less than a second. That's about half a second
Half
at
of a
about
second.
8,000 frames a second.
There you go.
Yeah,
So
it took
so
like
you
3/4 of a second from
yeah,
one
so you
edge
could you
of the
imagine
moon
how
to the other.
fast these things are moving, just so you get a scope of it,
Oh yeah.
which is unbelievable. And then obviously this is a frame after frame after frame that you use to build this up. But the thing is we see these all the time now, and instead of seeing it this close, obviously you're at what is this at 1200 18 2000, what's the millimeter on this? How close are you? What did
That's
you
on
use
a
for this?
10-inch. Oh, sorry, no, it's an 8-inch Dobsonian telescope. So it's a Canon 5D Mark IV, I think it was, on a 8-inch telescope.
Gotcha.
So I have to work out the focal length around 1100 or so.
I was
I'd
going to
have to
say
work
about
out the
12. It looks
ratio.
like about a
Yeah,
1200, somewhere on there.
yeah, it's
So
around 1100, 1200 focal length.
there you go. So I mean, that's just, it's absolutely an amazing shot, but it just gives you an idea of what these things look like. Now, obviously, this is the biggest one, but this is only one in the frame. Whereas when you see
Mm.
these constellations coming through, they're literally in like parading behind each other of like 10 or more, 20, 30, whatever, and they're all coming through in these streaks, and that's why a lot of the
That's only on
photos.
the launch. That's only on the launch when they're
Mm,
because they're in super low Earth orbit, and then when they get into position, you don't see that,
right,
and they're a lot less brighter. But once they're in orbit, it turns into giant streaks. Like so, when they first go up, like you're saying, they go in a nice little trail. So
right,
you get the nice little trail, which is pretty cool to photograph if you're able to see them.
right.
But it doesn't last very long, and then once they're in a few months later, and they're in proper orbit. The issue is when they're in orbit, you can't see them with the naked eye, but if you take a long exposure
Hmm.
with a camera on a telescope, your image will just get nothing but streaks all the way through it
Right.
with all these
Now,
satellites.
now they have
Nothing to look
tried
at.
to fix this situation, and
Yeah.
there's two different things that they were doing. Is as of version 1.5, not the original 1.5s, but as of now, probably the last few months or 6 months, they've introduced this dark coating. It's an
Hmm.
anti-reflective coating that they paint on the satellites on the side that is going to be reflecting the sun towards the Earth. That's number one. And then they're also putting together these visors, these sat visors,
Yep.
and they also reflect the sun away from the Earth so that they don't look like these bright dots in the sky. Now, have you noticed any difference with these newer satellites? Or I'd probably be hard for you to know which ones
Uh,
are the new satellites to old, unless you're using a piece of
yeah,
software.
there's only a few of them. There's only a few because when the first big backlash came out in the astronomy community, both amateur and scientific, the Elon was like, okay, we'll send. That was before version 1.5, so he did send up some of those with some reflected coating. Didn't really work. They reduced it a little bit, but if you're still doing a long exposure on an object, they still show up. There's no
Right.
real way to get around that. And the visors are not really doing much effect either. And the other issue is supposedly he's going to be able to when they're going over a known radio telescope site, they're actually going to be turning away,
Hmm.
but it's not really going to make much effect either because with the
Gotcha.
radio astronomy thing, the bandwidth they're going to
It
be
doesn't matter.
using is pretty much going to flood out the entire bandwidth that astronomers want to use to find organic compounds in the night sky.
Yeah.
So
So it's
anything like
basically
water, yeah,
it's a
it's
good
too much
try,
pressure.
but it's not going to work. It'll be
No,
minimal. Let's just say.
not going to work.
So if you
Yeah.
here's something I just brought up on the screen, Ken, and this is a site that I've been talking about for a while. It's called Starlink.sx. They're a third party. They're not affiliated with SpaceX, not affiliated with Starlink at all. But what they
Oh,
do
the
is
one where you can see them all. Yeah.
yeah, and here they show you
Yeah.
the different satellites. Now, I am at this blue dot here, which says Fort Lauderdale when you hover over it, right down here. Um, these blue dots that you see are the version 1 satellites. So you can see how many there are around me. All right. Whereas this green dot over here is the version 1.5. So this is the one with that would definitely have the coating on it, but all of these blue ones definitely don't. Now, there is no version 2s that we've seen float by yet. I believe they're going to be in red or something, a different color, but I have not
Yeah,
seen
they've only just
any.
been announced. Yeah,
Right. Yeah. But you see this blue,
yeah,
this green one right here, and then there's another green one right here, and they're let's call it about 700-800 miles apart from each other. Since these do have lasers, they can actually send data from this one to that one. So if I was requesting something from down here in Florida, it can definitely grab that and then send it over to another part, like I was talking about before, and then come back down to a different ground station without having to use any of the fiber optics on the ground, which would be amazing. So eventually you're going to see all greens, let's say, or a lot of greens, and these blue ones are going to slowly burn up. And I think it's like a 5 year. Do you know what it was? I think it's like a 5 year period
it's
max, and
around
then
5 years before they burn up, and then obviously you've got to keep replacing them to keep the constellation active.
Right.
So yeah, that's what we'll be doing.
Right. And, we were talking about the different pops or point of presence. I'm using this green one out of Atlanta, even though I'm over here at this green dot, where there is a closer one in Miami. But for some reason, the way Starlink and way SpaceX is working right now, they are just randomly I don't wouldn't say randomly, but they're grabbing these pops and then they associate you with them. Now, you can see this ping. Let me bring it back up on the screen. Right now, we have a ping of like 44, 37, 53, 58. You see these pings going on. Now, back when I was connected to this one down here in Miami, my ping was like 19 to like 25 milliseconds. So let's call it almost half. Because that distance is only 80 miles compared to all the way up here in Atlanta, Georgia, which is like 700 plus miles. So
Yep.
they're kind of getting it together, but that's why I've been doing a lot of these Starlink episodes, because people are interested in it. There's a lot of people, like we were saying earlier, that just simply want the service because they don't have anything
Yeah.
that is good. And some people, like you said, don't have anything at all. And now all of a sudden they can
That's right.
learn, they have access to the world of knowledge, as well as educational stuff.
Yep.
And, they don't need to go and play a first person shooter and go kill people, but, but actual learning and be able to get and just listening to us, what we're doing right now.
Access to communication
Yeah.
and knowledge. And we won't get into the horrible thing that's happening in Ukraine, but you imagine if Ukraine, if all the internet got shut down, you could connect to the satellites and still be able to get information in and out.
Yeah. And
which is vital.
Ukraine, I mean, we can be, pleasant about speaking about it and not, get crazy and, one way or another. But with the Ukraine,
No.
Elon Musk sent over, their president, let's call him, his premier, whatever, the president over there asked Elon and reached out and said, hey, do you have antennas for us? Can we use SpaceX over here? And literally, within a day, I think it was, or hours, he replied back, they're on the way. And people were like, "Oh my God, is Elon going to just send, Starlinks to the Ukraine?" And he did. Literally, truckloads and truckloads and truckloads of Starlinks. They are the version 1 Starlinks, so they are the round dish instead of the rectangular dish, is what I have. They are the round ones. Yeah. But the round ones are actually better for them over there because the round ones have a router that has an auxiliary port on the back, which is an Ethernet port. So they don't have to have a little dongle adapter. They could just plug straight into it. So that was amazing. And they did that. Well, Russia knew that they did it. So what happened was Russia started scrambling all Starlink uplink, let's say, all interaction from the actual ground unit up to the satellite. They were scrambling everything. So Elon's like, hey, wait a second, you're not going to scramble my shit. And within a day after that, he put out a new program for all of them. They all downloaded it, and now they're not being scrambled anymore. So, it's like, it's really weird what's going on. I feel like it's not even just a war on the ground. It's more of a cyber war that we aren't privy to that's going on between Russia and the Ukraine and the rest of the world at this point. A lot of it is technological. A lot of it is, once again, like these, cyber war. So what happens, my question would be, what happens if, Elon gets pissed and says, stop scrambling my stuff, leave it alone, or I'm going to start scrambling your shit and you're not going to like it. Does this turn into like a World War III kind of thing? And then the other thing that I think about...
Well, once it's a global network and like if everybody's on it and he goes, okay, well, such and such a country's been a bad boy, turn them off.
Yeah, exactly. And we see Facebook and Google and... Yeah, we see Facebook and Google and Canon and Nikon and Sony and Fuji and all the rest completely pulling out of Russia and having nothing to do with them at all right now. Right or wrong or whatever side of the fence you're on, all the companies are doing this. So yeah, like you said, I mean, what ends up happening at this point? Also, these version 2s, we know the version 1.5s have the lasers on them. The version 2s will have those communication lasers on them also. Who's to say that these things don't have other lasers or interfering whatever built into them? Right? That, I mean, I'll give you a
Yep.
perfect example. Just talking shit here. How about we know that all of, let's say, the Russian army or all of our army or whatever, they all use these geocentric satellites for doing GPS locational stuff, for dropping bombs and for doing communications and all that stuff. How about if every one of those satellites on this side of the planet is being scrambled and now there's no geolocation at all on any of Russians anything? I mean, like that.
Yep.
And I don't think that's
Yep.
far fetched. I think that's very easy to do, especially for him. He's a damn genius,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yep.
it's like,
Well, even your competitors, like if you've got another satellite network going up there trying to do communications over your ground that you've already put yours up, you can use
right.
those lasers and kind of knock those ones out of sync so they can't communicate as well.
Yeah.
Who knows? It's a free for all up there. You can do what
Right. So, are we going to eventually see like a space governing
Star
body,
Wars.
you know, that's like a
Hope so.
global.
We need a NATO type organization in space, and there's been rumors of that actually talking about that.
Really? Yeah, it's like it's almost a
Yep.
necessity at this point because of what we see is going on, or what we are not seeing, but we know is going on, right?
Yeah.
So
And
it's
it's all come from commercial interest because before you had NASA and you had ESA, and then they would all play nicely together. But now it's all of it's getting populated with commercial interests. It's just a free for all. That there's no real governing body to say what you can and can't do, other than don't mess the shit story up.
right, exactly. No, it's true.
Yep.
William says he's out of McGregor, Texas, and he can actually hear them test those engines, and it literally rattles the windows that are closed. So it's like, and he is
Nice.
obviously a fan of that. Can you imagine? I mean, just imagine those jets. I mean, that's just great. The propulsion that, I mean, they're working on Heavy
Oh,
now,
it's
which is going
physics
to
of
be
that.
able,
Yeah.
yeah, instead of launching 40
Uh-huh.
satellites, it'll be able to do, I think it would, maybe, I think it was 200 or someone right on there,
Yeah, a
satellites,
couple hundred at a time.
which to me
I
is,
mean,
oh
that's going to
God.
be crazy.
And
And
this
it's
is
going to
once,
have to, because in a few years' time, yeah, trying to build it up, and all these other companies are going to do the same thing. You're going to be hundreds and hundreds of satellites going up every few days.
right.
It's going to be insane.
Right. Peter says, in his opinion, basically the satellite problem is vastly overblown. When has the Earth last been hit with one that caused real damage? Yeah, so that is the
Chevrlinks?
case. What's that?
Chevrlinks?
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, that was a small rock, but that actually caused quite a bit of damage. People were going to hospital. A lot of windows got blown out. The
right.
sonic boom is an actual issue. We had one recently that caused a massive sonic boom that blows out. And these are only small rocks. It's not a matter of if; it's a matter of when.
No, absolutely. And
I mean,
the
yeah,
question is, if we have the capability of stopping these things before they hit the earth, should we be doing it? Number
that's
one, I think we should. Do we have the technology to do anything about it? I think at this point, I think there's a lot of technology that we have that we're not even aware of to be able to, let's
Well,
say,
they're
mitigate.
testing a program right. They're testing one right now. There's a satellite up there now. I can't remember the name of the comet they're slamming it into, or asteroid. Sorry. So there's three methods that they're proposing. Nukes is not the way to do it, but the
No,
problem over beside the fact that you've got a nuclear weapon going into space and it comes back to Earth, it's a bad thing. But you don't want to get a big rock and blow it up into lots of more rocks, because now you've got,
right.
instead of one rock impacting, you've got a shitload of rocks impacting over a
Exactly.
wider area. So that's not good. Um, the three main ones is, one, you paint it. So you paint the side of the rock, so it gets more reflective. That will cause it to go off kilter. The other one is you attach a rocket to it and you use propulsion to push it. And the other one is you slam a object into it to knock it off its orbit. So they're actually testing one right now. It's going to be hitting. They're going to sending a satellite and they're going to impact on this rock, and then they're going to get some data to see how much it actually knocks it off its known orbit, because they've got all
Right.
the telemetry on its known orbit. They're going to see how it impacts. So they're actually doing a test right now.
And
which is
it's incredible, incredible. Yeah, I mean they have to figure something out. As Elon has always talked about, is being this, being able to colonize other planets so that if we needed to move from, being a species that basically can wander from planet to planet, is something that would be highly attractive going, on 100,000 years from now, 50,000 years from now, maybe even 100 years from now. It depends on what's
yeah.
going on.
Have you
And the
seen
thing is
Expanse?
we don't know. And if, the thing that I look at it is like we hit the moon, right? We were on the moon the year I was born, and we
Hmm.
did it with slide rules. Okay. And
Yeah,
today we have like
and the
super,
technology that's not even as
yeah. I mean, they were
yeah,
using computers that used, little data cards, or, or just using slide rules to figure shit out. So, now that we have these
yeah. I
supercomputers,
mean,
we
the
still,
sets of technology that's in that Saturn V. Oh
yeah,
my god, mind-boggling. Hand woven copper wire that was done by special women that could. You look at the detail of the hand wire, that copper wire. Oh my god, it's amazing. But
it's
yeah, like you
crazy.
say, yeah,
I know. And
yep.
then literally going to the moon.
Literally
And we haven't been there
stuck together.
since, it's been 50 years.
No,
So,
yep.
people are like, well, why bother going to, this desolate. It's not about going there, in my personal opinion. It's just proving that, in other words, that we can not only do it, but we can use it as a launching point to get to other locations without having to need to expend the amount of propulsion material, right?
Bingo,
The energy, right,
bingo.
to leave the moon, because it has next to it's very little gravitational pull to it. So now we can build our location on the moon that is now we're delivering fuel to that location and then launch from the moon. And now you just saved just
That's right.
a crap ton of fuel, right? So that's the way I look at it. I don't know, other
Yeah.
people look at it probably
And not to
different.
mention the science and technology we're going to get from just doing that, like physically doing that. The amount of follow through technology we're going to get in our day to day lives that's going to come from just doing it.
Right. No, absolutely.
It's going
It's
to
the
be
knowledge,
absolutely
is it's
huge.
it's just to see that we can actually do it also. Let me see what else we see here in the comments. Matt Luke says I can go and play FPS or first person shooters on my Starlink. I need to be good at the game or have an extremely low ping to have fun. So I'm going to be doing a video on this
Yeah.
probably this week. I downloaded a bunch of first person shooters. I've been testing them out and they've been doing pretty good. Once again, let me go ahead and bring this ping up here just so you can see what it looks like. I'll just leave this up on the screen. Let me just bring this over. So um, yeah, so this is the ping. And this is the ping with not me obviously playing a game. This is a ping with me streaming, gathering data from Australia, taking my data, and then streaming it to YouTube. And we're still seeing about a 30 ping, 60 ping, somewhere right around there. But yeah, it's very, very important. It's very important to be able to have a low latency or a low ping whenever it comes to these first person shooters. So, I'm going to be
Hmm.
testing it out and I'm going to report back to you guys what my findings are. There's been other people to test this also, and some people said that they can, some people said that they can't. But I want to test now this generation 2 and the latest and greatest, and to see if things have gotten better. The main thing is not only low ping, like right now we're seeing some, what is it, 29s, 34s, 28, 31, not bad. Not just low latency, but what we need to see is no drops. So if I take this
Yeah.
window and if I scroll up a little bit, I'm going to see if I can find some here. You see every once
And
in a while,
this is only in the infancy stage of this system. Like this is brand new. There's only a small amount of satellites out
right.
using it. Right. So the more that goes up there, it's going to get better and better.
Right. And as we can
And the
see
technology is
here,
going to get better.
there we go. Yeah. So every one of those spots that we see that has like a little there's a couple right there. You see it says request timeout. That means that we did not get data. And that
Yeah, drop
is
it back.
it's a lost packet completely. And if I scroll up, there's not a
Mm.
ton. Every once in a while you'll see them, but there's not too many. So I would have guessed that this would have been a heck of a lot worse than what I'm currently getting. And I do know also that when I first got this, it was like, I think it was October or November of last year. I was getting a lot more of these outages, let's say. A matter of fact, there as I'm speaking,
Yep.
there's
Yep.
two that just popped up. There you go. You see those two that says request timeout? We had 43 milliseconds, and then there's another. So right there on that screen, we can see three requests. Now those are packets that are lost, and once those packets are lost, they're not coming back. That's it. So you get that momentary, yeah, that spike, let's say, where you don't have data, and that's where we'll end up getting into some problems here and there. But it kind of is what it is. Like you said, they're getting better with what they're doing, and that is it.
Yeah.
The question is, are people gonna, I think the problem that I have is, and that's why I wanted to have you on, Ken, because you're seeing both sides of it. You stream, okay? You
Yeah.
have your own. Matter of fact, I'm going to
Yep.
bring that up on the screen so people can see what you're doing.
Zip it.
Let me see here. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and switch that over. So this right here is a thumbnail of what Ken's show is all about. This is, I guess, coming up. What is it? Coming up this week, right?
Yeah, Sunday night my time, so it'll be Sunday morning EST.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So this is him. So definitely
8:30, 8:30
so what you can do is, when you get a chance, put a link. If I don't find it, I'll put a link in there. Oh, wait a second. Right here, I do have a link. Let me copy that, and I'll stick that link into the chat window so people can go and check you out. There you go. Done. You guys can go and check him out, what he does over on his channel. But the thing is I wanted Ken on because he's got a good perspective on this. Number one, he loves the night sky. He takes amazing photographs, astrophotography. Obviously, I want him to just tell you guys what type of gear he uses because I think it's very interesting. But so he's very into it, but then he's also streaming too, and he does have, he's on there all the time doing more of the on the computer side of things and has his own show and all the
Yeah.
rest of this stuff. So he's got both sides of it. So, and I think that's very important. Where there's a lot of people out there, they're like on the on one side of the spectrum or the other side of the spectrum, and they don't see both sides of it. And that's where I think is very
Nah.
important. And that's one of the things I like to do with this channel. I like to keep things almost not, it's like an unbiased, look on things. So I want to weigh both sides of it because I think there's positive things, having all of these satellites up there, and then there's negative things also. And that's kind of like the conversation that I think is
And we just
really
need a
important
good
to have.
equilibrium so everyone's kind of happy. And
Yeah.
no one's going to be super happy, but as long as we negate the impact and we have the awesomeness of having connectivity across the planet. I mean,
Yeah,
best of
yeah.
both worlds.
No, absolutely. You know what? Tell everyone real quick what the gear is that you use for doing some of these shots. I'm going to, in case someone has not been on here as of yet with us, let me go ahead and play that video again because I think this is very, very. But you
Yep, I'll
definitely
just address a couple of messages in the chat. So, the FCC does have regulations where, yeah,
Mhm.
you're not allowed to have them on the equator. You can't interfere with any communication satellites, military application, anything that's existing up there. But other than that, it's a free for all. You can do what you want as long as you don't affect anything that's up there already. Hey, yeah, FCC approval for nearly 38,000 low Earth orbit satellites outside of SpaceX. Exactly. And those ones are going to be higher orbit, which is going to be more impactful on astronomy. Which is
Right. So 38,000.
when
Yeah.
it comes
So
to the,
that was Jim.
yeah,
I think that asked that. He was
yeah,
talking about what I think he put in the comments here. He said Amazon Astra and Boeing are among just a few
The
outside of
Astra. Yeah,
SpaceX.
yep.
Yeah, Astra is big. That's going to be big. That are seeking to gain access to V-band spectrum and have requested
Mm-hmm.
from the FCC approval for nearly 38,000 low Earth orbiting, or LEO as they call them, satellites. And yeah, and
Yep.
even
Yep.
though they do list them as low Earth, or LEO satellites, I don't think they're as LEO as the, what is it, 550 kilometers that Elon has his, right?
Yeah,
I,
so Elon's are 550 meters. The International Space Station is about 400 kilometers. And then these ones that Amazon and a couple others are going to be putting up, they're going to be over 1,000 kilometers. So
wow,
they're definitely, that's twice as high, and that's going to mean there's more sunlight hitting them,
right.
so they're going to impact more
And they're going to be twice as slow, right?
dramatically.
You know,
Yeah.
because they're
Yep.
twice as far away, so they're going to be in proportion to us, traveling twice as slow. They'll be up there for a longer, for a longer period of time. They're going to be, so you're going to be getting a lot more streaks. Okay, I'm going to
Oh yeah,
guess,
oh, there's a shitload more.
yeah. So
Yeah,
it's
and
it's
then you
a
got
it's
38,000 that they're proposing, and then you got Elon's 40 odd thousand, and then probably the next company coming up next week with another 50,000 or whatever. It's
right.
just going to be
Then you
hundreds of
have,
thousands
yeah,
of these
and then you have
satellites.
China, right? And China was talking about
Yeah,
tens of
yeah,
thousands, and they can care less about FCC or any type of governing body. I mean, they can care less. It's like
nope,
they kind of do whatever they want to do, and that's it. The same thing with Russia. They're not going
yep.
to care about any governing space body and what they have to say. They're just going to do what's in their best interest and kind of call it a day. Let me see here. Hardcore Weather says, "Are you going to give advice on switching pops in this video?" Okay, so pops, if you guys don't know, are POP, or a point of presence. I call them knocks. It's basically a location where, matter of fact, let me go ahead and pull this screen up so that people get an idea. I'll talk about it just for a minute here. I won't get too deep into it, but I'll give you a kind of a gist of it. So I'm going to back up just a little bit. This is not Australia, obviously. This is the U.S., and we can see like 9 pops. You see down here, this says Fort Lauderdale. There's a number 2. There's a number 1 here. This is a green one, and you see all these purple pops. Basically, when you boot up your router, your Starlink router, it connects you supposedly to one of these pops. And that is where your data gets traversed through the internet, right? Let's say. So for me, I'm at this little green dot right here. The closest ground station would be this one right here in Fort Lauderdale, this little yellow dots. The yellow dots are ground station. So they'll send the signal up to this satellite, probably because it's the closest, down to this ground station. From the ground station, it'll go through fiber optics to my POP, which is over here in Atlanta, Georgia. The POP will then make that connection, once again, with, let's say, a ping that I'm doing here, with Google. This is a Google ping to their DNS server. It'll go from that. Google will come back to the POP, then up into the air, then down to the, back up to the satellite, and then back down to the station, whichever one it is, and then back over to me. That's how it works. And then this is how quickly it does it. Now, what he's asking here is, how do we control this? Now, in the past, I put out a message to Starlink and I said, listen, I went through a lot of the errand data. I dug in deep. I'm not just using this, information. I am a system administrator, so I have administrative type of access to different packages so that I know, each POP, how many IP addresses they have available to them, what the usage is, who ordered those, at what date, and all kinds of other stuff, right? So I have access to all of the errand information, a lot of other information, digging in deeper. And I wrote to them, I said, hey, my POP is currently, at the time, was Virginia. Over here, guys. Number 3. Check this out, right? So this is where it was. And I'm down here, all the way down here at the bottom. This is me. It was literally like 1,400 miles, 1,200. It's crazy, right? So I wrote to him, I said, listen, I'm down here. There's a POP sitting in Miami, 80 miles away. Do I need to traverse the entire country to be able to get this. And I was getting pings of like 60 milliseconds, 70 milliseconds. It was just ludicrous. So they're like, they didn't reply to me. They immediately switched me to Miami. I didn't reboot. I did nothing. All of a sudden, I was sitting in Miami and I was getting like 19 milliseconds, right? So they just did it. Well,
Nice.
I did a lot of testing for you guys. And when I did that testing, I had to reboot. When I rebooted, guess what? Obviously, the way the system works is it then you get it. You're figuring it out already. I didn't even say it. So
Mhm.
obviously, it at that point says, "Hey, what has the lowest latency? What has the less congestion? What is closer geographically, whatever?" And then it connected me
Sending out that
to.
handshake and going, "Yep, you'll do. I'll connect to
Right.
you."
So
Yep.
now I'm connected. Let me bring it up again. So I am now connected over here to this green square, which is Atlanta, Georgia. Now, this is 700 miles away, and it's not all the way up here, which is like 1,400 miles. So it's Atlanta, Georgia. But my question is why, right? I should be connected down here to Miami. Now, some people will say, well, because, maybe they're doing some kind of load balancing, and that's why they're connecting you to that. The answer to that is no. They're not load balancing this at all, because if not, I would see my connection change continuously. So when there's not a lot of traffic
Yeah.
over down in Miami, I should be connecting to Miami and not connecting to the POP that's in Atlanta. So no, they're not load balancing. They should, but they're not. So that being said, what I've told people to do is to contact Starlink and have yourself change to the more closer POP. Now, some people don't know how to find out their location. Also, other people, when they go to this page, are only seeing purple. They're not seeing the green where they're actually located. There's Java issues and stuff going on. You guys can always go
Yeah.
to whatismyip.com. Type that in.
That's the one.
Whatismyip.com. It will show you your internet IP address, not your internal, but your actual outbound outbound IP address. And then you can go look up where is it located. Let's say it's in Georgia. Well, then you go to this map and you're like, oh yeah, there's a POP in Georgia, so that's what I'm using, just so you know. The problem is, and I'll tell you and everyone that has this question, they're not doing it anymore. Maybe they got pissed off at me, or maybe they just got flooded at a whole bunch of requests that after I put out that video, there was like a ton of people. Whatever it is, they're like, I'm sorry, but what you're connected to is the best that we have right now, and we're trying our best to make it even better, and the usual nonsense that they do. So my suggestion is, does it work? I don't know, because I haven't tested it yet. But just thinking about it, my suggestion is rebooting your router, okay, every 4 hours for the course of a couple of days until you get a POP that you like, or a POP that's closer to you. Now, rebooting a generation 1, you can do it just by turning the damn thing on and off. It's no problem. A generation 2, or resetting it, right? A generation 2 doesn't have that button on there to be able to reset it. So what you need to do is unplug and plug back in the router 3 times in quick succession, and then it will go back to factory settings. You put in your information and it will reconnect to the POP. So that is the only thing that I can possibly give you right now, because writing to them just doesn't seem to work anymore. I'm sorry. So hopefully all that big, long, lip, information, hopefully it's helpful. I didn't want to get too windy and wordy on it, but hopefully that helps you a little bit. So that's my suggestion to you, and hopefully it helps. Do you see any other in the comments that we should address before we get into next thing?
You got a shout out? Shout out to JCristina for a great channel and so useful, relevant content. Thank you. Yeah.
Patrick, thank you so much. I really do appreciate that. I really, really do. I try my best with this, just like Ken with his channel. I mean, we do this for sheer passion of doing it. Neither of us are shills. So I've got sometimes some negative, people will say, oh, you're a shill for Canon, or you're a shill for, SpaceX or Starlink or whatever. Trust me, I don't get paid from no one. If you guys don't buy any of my crap that I've invented over the years that you can find over on my store on JCristina.com, I don't get paid. That's it. These people, no one is paying. Trust me. I am not getting paid by any of them. If you use any of my affiliate links for like Amazon or something, I might get 25 cents or something, but that's it. So I really, we both do this because we
Yep.
absolutely love it and we like to, disseminate information. Now, are we right all the time? Am I right all the time? Absolutely not. But that's the whole thing that I've always tried to do with this channel is make it into a bi-directional connection and not a freaking monologue with just some guy that thinks he's a guru and just talking down to you people. It's just stupid. And then you'll see that a lot
Totally.
on a lot of these channels, and then they do this
Yeah.
thing. I hate that, and you're fantastic with
Yeah.
that on your channel too. And people are always talking to you because of that.
Yep. No, that's totally it. It's all a conversation backwards and forward. It's not been preaching. Yeah, I hate that too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's appreciated. A lot of people they'll see it and then they'll, but anyways, thank you so much, Patrick. I do appreciate that. Let's see. William says, my opinion, it's not doomed. The astrophotography. Now, I don't know. I just put that as the name of the live. Is it doomed? Is astrophotography doomed? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe Ken, do you know if there's 100,000 pieces of junk orbiting in Leo, low Earth orbiting satellites, or as I call them, junk. 100,000, let's say, 150,000. What do you see in like your astrophotography? What do you think?
I think for us amateurs doing astrophotography, it's just going to make it a lot harder because you're going to have to throw away a shitload of your data, and the data's precious. Like you've only got a certain amount of time to actually get that data. We've all got lives. The conditions are always against you, so you've only got a small window when you can actually get that data. And so if your data is completely screwed up constantly with junk in it, you have to throw it away. So what you're left with is going to be a very small amount of data. So you're going to have to get more data over what you would normally just to be able to get an image. So that's always going to be a pain in the ass. And then if you're talking about actual science, that's kind of scary,
Yeah.
especially with radio astronomy. I mean, like the optical, yeah, there might be, like you say, there might be ways around that. And people have suggested, oh, we could just stick up more space telescopes. It's like, oh, really? Do you have any idea how many space telescopes you would have to put out there to compensate for the Earth-bound telescopes?
Right.
So, and not only that, the cost to put those things up there.
Yeah, yeah. And what people don't
People like
understand
that.
too is a lot of the work that's done with radio telescopes and even ground-based telescopes are done in a means of gathering data between multiple locations and not one location. So there'll be, let's say,
Correct.
images taken from, big, let's call them big, quote, big telescopes, and they'll be sometimes 30 miles away, 100 miles away, sometimes 1,000 miles away, all directed to the exact pinpoint part of the sky, and then those images are then superimposed together. And I don't think people are aware of that. They think that it's just one, one a telescope doing it, and then that's it. It's usually a lot that are there, especially when you're talking
Yep.
about
And
science.
oh yeah, and especially if there's a phenomenon that occurs, you will get all the radio telescopes, all the optical telescopes, everybody will drop what they're doing and they will point everything at that one thing to get as much data as they can. And like you say, interferometry when it comes to radio, the wa- the more resolution you can get, so the more data you can gather. Yeah, just like a camera, you need a better f-stop so you can gather more light, then get a better image. Radio is exactly the same.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, you marry all of them together to be able to get what you need. And like you said, if there's something big that happens, you're going to take these ground stations and point them all to a specific location in the sky, and you're going to get a ton of data from them. And looking at it in different angles, let's say, to be able to get it to get that data,
Totally, all different radio frequencies, infrared, X-ray, all optical. Yeah, the whole lot. Yep.
yeah, amazing.
Bingo.
It is absolutely amazing what they can do. But when
Have
I
you
like we're
seen the James Webb Space Telescope image?
oh my goodness, wow. I
Wow.
mean, yeah,
There's going to be a bunch of papers just from that one image. This is just a test image that they've aligned the mirrors, and the amount of science that's going to come out of that one little image in the next few weeks is going to be mind-boggling.
Yeah,
We've
yeah,
seen stuff that we've never been able to see
yeah.
before ever.
Right, right, right,
Right.
right. I mean, it just gives you,
It's
and one of the things that I absolutely, I had a great guy on doing macro photography, a while back, and then I had you on doing astrophotography, and the macro and the micro, and looking at the two. I think it's fascinating, how we're able to look
yeah,
closer and closer and closer to something really close to us, and get in there so tight to get down to just the minuscule things that we've never even known that they were there. And
yep.
then the other way,
So cool.
looking,
And I love doing that. I love doing it because
yeah, I
that's
think it's
exactly what I do when I'm doing my astro. I'm shooting galaxies millions of thousands, hundreds of light years away, and then I'm running around with my macro gear while I'm taking those images doing macro photography.
yeah,
It's so
absolutely,
much fun.
yeah, no,
I got one
absolutely.
extreme to the other.
Yeah, from one extreme to another. It's just awesome. It's absolutely awesome. And now that the gear, and that's one of the things that I wanted you to talk about is, and then we'll get going here because we've already been on for over an hour. What gear are you using to do your astrophotography? Because people have been seeing, I've been playing the video and whatnot of your shots that are just absolutely
Yep.
gorgeous.
Yep.
What gear are you using?
So all the wide field stuff, like on that time lapse, that's all Canon. So Canon 5D Mark IV, 5D Mark III on a tripod, so no tracking mounts, with a 14mm lens. So they're both Samyang lens. One's the 2.4, one's the 2.2. So the Samyang 14mm. Most of those shots, and then some of them I used a Nifty 50, just a Canon Nifty 50.
Right.
If I'm doing a panorama or a stitched image, because you get less chromatic aberration distortion when you're trying to stitch a pano together. If I'm doing deep sky stuff, it depends. If I'm doing like that satellite, the space station in front of the moon, that's a real super quick shot. So that was no tracking telescope, but essentially using the telescope as a giant lens. So I just whack the camera on there and use the telescope as a giant lens. If I'm tracking images, then I'll use the tracking mount. So I've got a couple of Skywatcher mounts that I use for tracking. And then I've got I've got refractors and reflectors. So with telescopes, either it's a bunch of mirrors or it's a bunch of lenses. So depending on what I'm actually shooting. So
Gotcha.
I've got RC, which is a Ritchie Criterion 8-inch. I've got a 14-inch Dobsonian. I've got a 10-inch Dobsonian. I've got a 10-inch Schmidt Cassegrain that I use for planetary. Also got a solar telescope that if I do for a bit of solar work.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so you're
got
you're in
about
pretty
9.
heavy. I mean, you got a lot of equipment for sure.
Yeah,
It's
yep. And then with the macro stuff, I've got the Sigma 150 with a bunch of extension tubes. And then I got the MP65, which is a 5 times macro. That's a beast. And then I've got
that's nice.
a bunch of other bits and bobs with diffusers and triggers and all sorts of
Right, 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 right.
cool
It's
stuff.
that's
Yep.
awesome. I mean, and when you see these images, it's mind blowing that the light that we're seeing is million-year old light, let's say, and who knows if that
Yeah,
light.
it's all time travel.
Yeah, it's like you don't even
Yeah,
know
it's
if
all
that
time travel.
light, that
It's so
that
cool.
specific dot is even there anymore today. You
Yeah.
know, it's
Yep.
it's bizarre.
And if you're, and it's so cool if you're taking a picture of a galaxy that's 11 million light years away, it's taken 11 million years for that photon to hit the back of your sensor, and you've captured that photon. I mean, like how cool is that?
How cool is that, right? How cool. Well, I tell
Yep.
you what, I want to thank everyone, number one, for being here. Thank you so much. I am going to put some merch into my own store. I was doing merchandise, and I don't know if you have ever done it through YouTube, and it was a complete failure. So now I'm going to do
YouTube.
something. Yeah, right. I had like a merch thing through YouTube. I forgot who they use, whatever their internal thing is, and it was just horrible. So I
I
threw
didn't know
on,
that.
yeah. So I'm putting on some merch over on my store, which is, if you guys want to take a look at it, go over to JCristina.com. Also, if you haven't taken a look at any of my ebooks, go check them out also at JCristina.com/books. You can get a whole bunch of them for free. Also, don't forget to take a look at Ken's I think he's live, you said on Sunday, right? So check that out. I put a
Yep.
link
Sunday.
already in the chat window. So check that out also. And if you're coming and you're watching this, let's say recorded, any questions that you have for Ken or myself, put them in the comment area. We'll be watching them anyways for the next couple of days, and we will answer it in there. And hopefully in the next one, maybe next Friday.
Totally, like on my channel, like it's predominantly about Scotch and stuff, but it's a free open pub, so it's just like a pub style. So if you want to come in and talk astronomy, photography, whatever, you name it, come on and ask
that's
questions.
awesome. I mean, look at the back of Ken's scene there. Look at that. Look at that. Look at those bottles.
It's no green screen. This is real.
Is that amazing, people?
This is only like half of it that you actually see on camera.
Right. And that's Scotch? Is that all Scotch?
Predominantly Scotch. I mean, I like everything. I mean, Scotch is predominant. That's why my channel's Scotch Down Under. But I like Irish. I like Japanese. I like Australian, Taiwanese. You know, you name it. I like it all. And bourbon as well. I love me some good bourbon. So
that's so awesome.
Everything. Like
that is
gins,
beautiful.
like beers. You name it.
Right. Yeah. So definitely go and check out his pub and hang out with him on Sunday. And thanks a lot, Ken, for being here. I really do appreciate it. And we have to have you on more often for sure.
Yeah, most definitely.
So anyways, guys, thank you so much for being here. We will see you in the next one. Once again, check out JCristina.com, and we'll see you hopefully on Monday. I'm trying to do more of these. Right now, we're sitting at about anywhere from 2 to 4 videos per week. I'm going to try getting closer to that 4. And if there's anything specific that you want me to talk about in any of those videos, any kind of topic, definitely let me know in the comment area. I read every comment, and I probably answer about 90% of every comments. And sometimes there is hundreds and hundreds of comments in some of these videos. So anyways, many blessings to you and your family. What's that?
It's work.
No, it's work. It's definitely. Yeah. And it is definitely work. And people don't even, sometimes some of the people, they get it and some people don't. But yeah, normally when we do like a video, right, we go in there and we answer those comments for at least a day or two after. And that's normally what I do. But sometimes I'm answering comments that are from videos that are 6 months old because they'll pop up and I'm like, got to answer this, and no, it is definitely a part-time job. So anyways, once again, guys, thank you so much for being here. Many blessings to all of you. We will see you in the next one. Take care.